This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com in review. What I'm looking at today is 2015's Poltergeist, directed by Kenan. And for a long time, I've deliberately avoided watching this movie because the original Poltergeist in 1982 I thought was a sublime movie. Creepy, great special effects, well acted, and a joy, an absolute joy to watch. So as a result, I never quite understood why this reboot existed beyond the most cynical of reasons. And finally having seen it, I'm still not sure why it exists. Now keep in mind something though, this is not a bad movie. It's actually pretty well put together. It has some interesting scares, but as I was saying, there's no real reason for this to exist beyond cynical ones. It changes perspective quite a bit. In a sense, with the original Poltergeist, I didn't feel that there was an audience proxy in it. In that it was a story about a family, a normal family for the most part, plagued by ghosts. And it just kind of introduced you to the family, and you got a feel for who they were, and then things started to happen. There was no entry point, per se. While in the case of Kenan's reboot, Griffin, who's a son, is the entry point to the drama. And it's not the most welcome of changes. For a start, I don't think the actor who was chosen for the role really fits it very well. He just seems out of sync. It's not that he's bad. In fact, no one is bad in this movie. But his portrayal kind of didn't quite resonate for me. I don't quite know why. I didn't like his character much. And the movie implies certain things, which didn't amount to anything, but it implies them. For instance, at the beginning, when Griffin is playing ball with his dad seemingly deliberately throws the ball into a tree. So what's the point of noting that? The movie seems to be trying to establish that there's something wrong with the relationship between the father and son. But it never quite gives us enough information to come to that conclusion, and it pretty much abandons the plot line. It would have actually been far more interesting and, dare I say, innovative if there was indeed something wrong in this relationship. Maybe the father was abusive. Actually, that's the first thing that popped into my mind. And so it gave things an interesting kind of feel. But this is something that is quickly disregarded, and the movie moves on from it. It tries too much to imitate the original movie, as opposed to just striking out on its own. And in fact, that's probably my greatest problem with this movie. It's trying to be too evocative of the original movie, as opposed to just being its own movie. It's kind of irritating in some ways, actually. For instance, if you've seen the poster of this movie, there's that clown. In the original Poltergeist, the clown was not that big a deal. I mean, it was a great scare. It's very well done. But at the same time, it was not as crucial to the story as it is this time around. The movie, in too many instances, feels like a setup to introduce elements from the original movie, which, as I said, is problematic. As I've said earlier, this is not a bad movie, but it's just not that great either, because it just tries to be something it's not, namely the first Poltergeist. In fact, it reminds me in some ways of Poltergeist 3, which for my money is the second best of these movies. And I wish this movie had followed more in that direction, which is to say, strike new ground. Keep your story essentially as it is, but go into new places. For instance, the reboot takes place in similar circumstances as the 1982 movie, which is to say, family goes looking for a house, tract housing, ticky-tacky, all the houses look the same type of thing. The thing is, though, there's nothing about the story of Poltergeist that weds them to that concept. You could make this movie in a housing project. In fact, that would be, dare I say, interesting. Take this concept, move it somewhere else. Make it a housing project. Why not do that? And the housing project has unscrupulous developers had something happen. You don't even have to use a burial ground idea. Just use murders. Not exactly unknown to happen in housing projects. And one of the children is a trigger for the spirits of these murdered people. And you get your ghosts. It's such an interesting concept, easily used to do really interesting things with. And that, in my eyes, is the greatest problem with this reboot. It does things you've already seen before. I've already seen Poltergeist. I think it's a great movie. I didn't need to see it repeated in this fashion. And that's why, as I said earlier, Poltergeist 3 is, in its own way, a great movie. It takes the concepts introduced in Poltergeist and takes them in a new place, a new city, and a new direction. That's interesting. And I wish this movie had done something similar. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. Do you agree? Disagree? Let me know down below. Since you're there, consider either a like or a follow.